Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's call with L&I Secretary Jerry Oleksiak and UC Benefits Policy Director Susan Dickinson. I'm Teresa Elliott, Deputy Communications Director for L&I. Please submit your questions by clicking the chat icon, which is the blue thought bubble at the bottom of your screen. Please include your name and media outlet, followed by your question. In the interest of time, you'll be limited to one question, but time permitting, we'll open up the call for a second round. You may submit any follow-up questions to us at dlipress@pa.gov, and we will address them after the call. For your awareness, this call is being recorded. If you do not consent to being recorded, please hang up now. Following the call, a link to the recording will be provided to the media outlets that participated. We'll start with comments from Secretary Jerry Oleksiak. Secretary?
Thank you, Teresa, and thank you to those of you who have joined us this afternoon. We appreciate your flexibility with the later start time. We begin with the figures as we often do, always do. Since March 15th, we've paid more than $32 billion in benefits, 12.6 in regular unemployment comp, 15 billion from the federal pandemic unemployment compensation program, which is the extra $600, and that program ended on Saturday. $4 billion from the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. That's the program for those who are generally not eligible for unemployment compensation. And we've paid $298 million from the federal Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation Program, which extends benefits, and $14.2 million from Pennsylvania's Extended Benefits Program. And that's where that $32 billion comes from. 94% of eligible claimants who filed for unemployment compensation between March 15th and June 27th were either paid or deemed not eligible for benefits. The remaining 6% are claims that the automated system, for various reasons that we've talked about in the past, could not approve and are under individual review by our staff. As far as our unemployment customer service, our employees have worked almost 230,000 hours, 229,726 hours of overtime since March 15th. We have increased our staffing levels. We're now up to 122% increase since March 15th. We have had 775 employees on March 15th, and we have a current total of 1,719. 452 of those are staff that have newly joined us in July, and we are finalizing numbers now for another round of new staff that will be brought on board and begin training in September. This increase, the total, comes from hiring new employees, reassigning staff from other state offices and agencies, and reassigning people within our own agency. Thus far, since March 15th, we've responded to about 690,000 emails, close to 315,000 phone calls, about 122,000 live chats, and about 271,000 calls have been taken by our virtual assistant. And those numbers are getting better all the time. Related to the pool fraud, we issued a press release last week on July 31st, urging Pennsylvanians to report unemployment benefits fraud. We have continued to work with state and federal partners, and thus far have identified about 4,000 fraudulent claims in Pennsylvania for PUA benefits. And by identifying those claims, we prevented more than $44 million from reaching the fraudsters who are trying to have access to that. Our partners include the U.S. Attorney's Office in Philadelphia, the Pennsylvania Attorney General's Office, the Pennsylvania Treasury, U.S. Bank, and more. And this fraud investigation is far from over. It's ongoing. As we've said before, this is a identity theft fraud ring that's targeting COVID-19 employment compensation benefits across the nation. This is not just in Pennsylvania. And unfortunately, many Pennsylvanians aren't aware that their benefits have been stolen in the past until they do receive some information from us or from UC Bank through their credit card or the Treasury from direct deposit. Debit card, I'm sorry, not credit card, debit card. So we urge people to remain vigilant to look for warning signs of the scam and what to do if you become a victim. The press release we issued is available at dli.pa.gov, and that list includes a list of those warning signs to tell you if you have been victimized, details on how to report that fraud, and instructions on how to return any fraudulent benefits that someone may have received. So we continue to make progress with that, and we will continue to fight that as long as it's out there. As you are well aware, and as we have talked about for several of these media calls over the past few weeks, the Federal Pandemic Unemployment Compensation Program, which is the extra $600 per week, ended on July 25th. The federal government funded that as part of the CARES Act. The governor's office, our office, we have urged Congress to extend that $600 weekly federal benefit to help struggling families who need to keep food on the table and pay their bills as we continue to experience high numbers of COVID-19 cases. And we have encouraged anyone who is supportive of extending benefits to contact their legislators and let them know where you stand. Anyone who is waiting on payment for UC claims from the weeks of April 4th through July 25th will still receive those backdated payments if eligible. As we've said in the past few weeks, getting ready for this, there are other additional state resources that are available through DHS, the Department of Human Services. Those programs include Medicaid, the CHIP program, Children's Health Insurance Program, SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, LIHEAP, which is the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, and TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. DHS also received approval to administer other particular programs specifically related to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we would urge any of our fellow citizens who need those services to contact DHS through their website, compass, COMPASS, .state.pa.us. That's compass.state.pa.us. And you can also call the statewide customer service center at 877-395-8930. The Pennsylvania Insurance Department also has a website that will explain possible opportunities for extension of healthcare benefits, and that's at insurance.pa.gov. And on the state website, pa.gov, there is a link to resources for Pennsylvanians, which will link people to mental health resources, financial help, mortgage and rent information, food assistance, and other things they may need during this difficult time. We urge everyone also to take advantage of the free services that are offered by the PA CareerLink offices, over 60 of them located across the state. Whether you want to learn new skills, look for a better job, information on high school equivalency, various services that are provided through the Pennsylvania Career Links. These are virtual right now, and we hope to expand that as the pandemic continues. But we'll see how that goes. Again, adult education classes, career counseling, on-the-job training programs, resume assistance, virtual workshops, and there are some resources for employers as well. And the last thing I'll mention, we are continuing to hold our virtual town halls for the public. I think we've done 10 of those so far. We'll do number 11 this Thursday at 1 p.m. People can access that through access.live/PA-labor, or they can call 833-380-0719. And again, we can't get into specifics with people about their specific claim, but we can answer general questions and help people get the answers they are looking for. So with that said, I think, Susan, we're ready to take questions.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be happy to take your questions. Thank you.
All right, our first question of the day is from Fox 43 News, and we have Rachel Yakunis on the line, and she asked, some viewers have told us they stopped receiving their UC payments about 3 weeks ago without any notice or information provided.
If it's truly...
Sorry, Susan.
Oh, sorry, go
Can
ahead.
you explain what would stop the issuance of UC payments?
So if it's, and I wonder if there may be a terminology mismatch. So if it's truly UC and not PEUC or EB or PUA, then it could be a sign of fraud. We had mentioned a while ago on many of these calls that individuals were experiencing sudden stops in their payments. That was back in June or so, where they were receiving direct deposit UC payments and then all of a sudden stopped receiving their direct deposit UC payments. The key factor is to look at their online account with us, their claims data. They can look to see what the last payments were that were made. And if there were payments that were made that are recent and yet they didn't receive the money in their bank account, it could be a flag of fraud. Now, the reason I'm doubting that this is probably about regular UC payments is because of the time frame. That issue with the direct deposit stopped about 2 months ago, whereas if it started just 3 weeks ago, I'm wondering if it might be one of the extension claims. We had the quarter change happen, and we had to stop the claim and test everyone for a regular UC claim. So that is likely the case. If they were on PEUC or EB, staff would be checking to see if they can qualify for a regular UC claim before having them continue on that claim. As soon as they are verified as not being eligible for regular UC, then they'll be permitted to continue on the claim that they're on. However, if they are eligible for regular UC, they'll be contacted to file a regular UC claim, and their extension claim will be stopped while they go over to the regular UC claim. And also for PUA, it's possible that if the individuals are on PUA, that perhaps they had answered a question incorrectly, or they are part of they got in a fraud filter, and we have to verify their identity. So those are just some possible issues, without having the actual individuals in front of me to see what's happening with them specifically. It's hard to say, but those are ideas based on what program they're on as to what might be happening.
Next, Lee Lesniak from NBC 10 writes, one of our viewers tells us he's been receiving PUA payments. He accepted gig work several weeks back, which he says disqualified him from benefits for that week. However, he says the PUA payments he believed he's entitled to for the following 2 weeks have not come through. Can you please share if accepting work for 1 week causes a delay in processing payments for the following weeks?
For the PUA program, when someone reports that they are working full-time for a week, in full-time meaning just that they are working excessive, with an excessive earnings amount, so they're earning too much to be considered unemployed for the week. When that happens on a PUA claim, it does hold up the claim and not let them file for the subsequent weeks. What they have to do is reopen their claim. So if you are, and this is true for regular UC as well, if you are employed for a week and you're not eligible for a UC benefit because you're not unemployed at all, then what you have to do is reopen your claim, and then you're permitted to continue filing once you've reopened. So that is something that is a little confusing, to the public in general. We do have information in the claimant handbook and online, www.uc.pa.gov. So when after you are fully employed, your claim is still good. You don't have to file a new one, but you just have to reopen what you have available to you.
KDK's Nicole Ford asks, with the loss of the extra $600 impacting so many people across the Commonwealth, is the department in support of any new unemployment benefits at the federal level?
Off mute there, sorry. Yes, absolutely. We have contacted our congressional delegation. We've worked with national agencies like NASWA, the National Association of State Workforce Agencies, and Council of State Governments, and other agencies like that, to let our opinion be known that we are supportive of an extension of the federal unemployment benefits. And we would like to see it kept at $600 wherever Congress ultimately lands. As you know, there's been a lot of back and forth on that, but wherever they ultimately land, we will be ready to get that program going. If it's a flat rate, and we've talked about this before as well, if it's a flat rate, we can do that relatively simply. If there is anything that involves a percentage of a person's income, if the unemployment benefits are based on that percentage, that could take a considerable amount of time for us to adapt to that new system, as long as 3 or 4 months, depending on the particulars of it. If they do pass a bill today, for example, it could still be some time before we would get the regulations and guidelines that we would need from the Department of Labor. And then we would begin doing whatever we needed to do to continue that extension of benefits.
Joe Napsha from the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review asks, any estimate on a number of people in Pennsylvania who have lost FPUC?
At a couple weeks ago, when we looked to see how many individuals had received an FPUC payment, it was just over 2 million. Now that is the total number of people since the beginning of the pandemic who's received at least one FPUC payment. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they were all recently filing. They could have exhausted benefits. They could have stopped filing because they went back to work. So I don't have a number for how many people have lost it beginning with this current week who were receiving it previously, but we do know that about 2 million have received an FPUC payment total since the beginning of the pandemic.
Carlisle Sentinel's Zach asks, since the FPUC has ended, how difficult will it be to turn back on, so to speak, if Congress decides to do so?
Yeah, that's, I think, a very similar answer to what we just gave, where it really depends on the details of not just the legislation, but also the details of the regulations and guidelines that we need to follow. Clearly, if it's a flat rate, that's something that will be easier, for lack of a better word. It won't be easier, but it will be easier to turn the system back on. If it's $600, we should be able to do that in a matter of a few days. And Susan, you can correct me if I'm wrong. If it's a different flat rate, that may take as long as a week. And if it is a percentage of income, that's a whole different story. That could take several months.
Correct. And it's the FPUC isn't technically off right now. It's going to be on for a long time because we're still making payments for weeks that are in the past, so it'll still be on. It's just a matter of, if they were to extend it and they were to make it a flat rate, but it's a different rate, it would just be changing a table behind the scenes to marry up the rate to the dates so that the correct weeks get the correct amounts paid with them. So the program is on. It doesn't actually go off. It won't for a while. So it'll continue making those payments to individuals for weeks July 25th and prior.
Following this next question, we'll be entering our second round of questions. So I encourage anyone who has any additional follow-ups at this time to please submit them using the chat icon. Next, we have Lauren Rosenblatt from Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. You mentioned last week that Pennsylvania is now borrowing money from the federal government for its UC Trust Fund. When did you begin borrowing the money? How much does the state borrow at a time? And how long will the loans be interest-free?
Sorry, on mute. We did begin that process last week, and it's more like a line of credit than an actual, loan. What we are borrowing $800 million for the month of August, $1 billion for the month of September, and $1 billion for the month of October. So that's what the line of credit will be available to us, and they are interest-free loans. I'm not sure if there's a cap on how long they are interest-free, but we had to do this during the Great Recession, and we were able to actually pay off the loan early. So it's obviously a different situation right now, but that's the basics of it.
Okay, it looks like we have no additional questions at this time. So I'd like to ask Secretary Oleksiak or Susan if they have any final thoughts or information to leave with our participants today.
Thank you again for joining us and for helping get the word out. We continue to, as we've said every week, our staff is growing. We're training people to get on the phones, to respond to emails, and to continue to get benefits in the hands of people that need them. So thank you.
And that's all the time we have for today. Please email our communications office at dlipress@pa.gov with any additional questions. Thank you so much for joining us today, and stay well.
Thank you.